So welcome everyone to our channel. My name is Dr. Harry Benjamin. We do this brief discussion on a Sunday, and the discussion is designed for you and I to be able to remove blockades, obstructions, obstacles that may be interfering with us being able to tap into our greater nature, to tap into our gifts, our talents, our capacities. Things that we can do in the world are oftentimes hindered by beliefs that we inherited from our parents, our culture, the people around us, different perceptions that we picked up along the way as we were developing ourselves. So we started this conversation and we're going to continue it and develop it to the extent that we want to eliminate those areas that are obstructing us so that we could reveal more of our gifts and talents. So today's topic is, are you unconscious? That's the topic today. It's a question, are you unconscious? And some people off the bat, may have an answer, but for the purposes of our conversation, I'd love to just go through those who are here and just hear from you. Are you unconscious, right? And what do you believe that question points to, because it's somewhat of an interesting question, right? Are you unconscious? All right, so let me start with you, Wale, if you can unmute, and answer the question, are you unconscious? Let me start there. All right, and then we're going to also need to define what's conscious and what's unconscious, what's being conscious and what's being unconscious, and that may be a better place to begin rather than just asking you off the bat if you're conscious or not, because
Sorry.
Go ahead, Wale.
Good afternoon. So I would need a further understanding of the question before I can actually answer. But what I know is that we're all conscious and unconscious beings. For example, whatever happens to you while you're asleep could become as a state of unconsciousness. And people do have dreams that come to reality. So I think in a way we are all a conscious and an unconscious being. But I don't know, you might still need to put some explanation to that question to help me better.
All right, thanks. I think we need some context. So let's first define what's consciousness. Let's define what's consciousness first. And then when we define what's consciousness, then we can determine if we're conscious or unconscious. So what is consciousness? Let's start with you, Mark. From your perspective, what is consciousness? If you can unmute.
Excellent morning, excellent afternoon, excellent night to everyone around the globe. My name is Mark Wilson. In terms of consciousness, it's you or I as an individual being understanding where I am, what is my purpose here, and what are the things that I need to get, what are the things I need to do so that that purpose could be reached. Being aware of our situation here and our time here, and being productive with it. Yes.
Okay, I like that perspective on being conscious and not just being asleep or awake. All right, thank you very much for that. Replang, would you like to contribute to that? What, from your perspective, what do you believe the word consciousness means?
Okay, so consciousness could be being aware of yourself, aware of your environment, aware of your purpose. That's how I look at being conscious.
Thank you for that. Wale, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. So taking a cue from the explanation of the first two people, I think when you're being termed as a person from a conscious state, it could mean when you put a lot of reasoning into whatever you're doing, logical especially, and then when you're being unconscious could be termed as when you're being not so rational with your thoughts or your decisions at every point in time. Some people could term it as being taking emotional decision. That's my little understanding.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you all. So, so let me share my my perspective on it, because these are perspectives that we each have, and the reality of it is nobody is wrong from their own perspective. Everybody from their own perspective is right based on how they see things. And then someone else may see what they see differently. And that's where we have a difference of opinion or a difference of point of view or perspectives. So we're sharing our perspectives, and then from our individual standpoint, recognizing that we all have our own culture, our own beliefs, the systems that we came up through, the family structure that we inherited, that dictates to some extent how we perceive life. So consciousness, over time, I've gotten a clearer understanding of what consciousness is. And consciousness is really the deepest aspect of our being. If you think about being aware, for you to be aware of something, like, for example, for me to be aware of this, there has to be a me being aware of this. So for us to be aware of the thoughts in our mind, there has to be something in us that is aware of the thoughts that are passing through our mind. And that's something that is aware of the thoughts that we hear in our mind. When, if I asked you to say hello in your mind, you'd say hello and you heard it. So there's something in you that's hearing you say hello. And there's also something in you that's speaking hello in a way that you could hear hello inside of your mind. So the consciousness is that entity of ourselves that is aware of what's happening inside of life. For example, if you look at the word consciousness as the ocean, let's look at this vast body of water that surrounds the planet. So that if we call that our consciousness or the ocean, inside of that ocean is sand. At the bottom, we have fish flying around or swimming around. And also we have content like plankton. You may have garbage that was, that fell into the ocean because of how we behave as human beings. Ships that are sailing in the ocean. All of that are content. And the same way we could look at our consciousness as being that ocean and having content in it. Now, the content that's passing through, like the thoughts, a physical body that we have, the mind that we use to think, the thoughts that are being spurned out from the human mind, the things that we have in our possession, whether it's a car, a home, a business, all of these things are content within our consciousness that we're aware of. Now, the person who is conscious versus the person who is unconscious relates to those who are now identified with these things in their consciousness as a part of who they are. Some people ask them, so who are you? Well, I'm a doctor. That's a role that they play in life. And some people say I'm a doctor as their identity, or they may say I'm a son or I'm a child of such and such a person from such and such an area in the planet. And all of these different things are cool and they're important and they're of value. But those are individuals that are generally walking in a state of being unconscious to their consciousness. So those of us who are awake and aware, we are now conscious of the consciousness itself within us, and we're aware of that as our identity. And then we can start to see the thoughts more clearly. We can start to hear what's coming up in our mind when people say things to us. We can also realize that we have a body, but we're not our body. We realize that we have a mind, but we're not our mind. So the consciousness, the question asks us, are you unconscious? And if for those who didn't go beyond it, say, let me just not run. I say, of course I'm conscious. I'm awake. I'm walking around. I'm breathing. Of course. What do you mean? All right. And some people could quickly throw the question off as being not meaningful, now realizing that, are you truly conscious? Are you aware that you are consciousness itself? But what are the implications of this? Because it's not just that you're aware of it, but what are the implications of it? When you're aware of your consciousness, when you're aware that when you become aware that your awareness itself and not the body, not the mind, not the things in your life experience, what starts to happen is bubbling up of joy and peace and love and intelligence and wisdom and creativity and transforming knowledge. These attributes start to bubble up within you and become more active in your awareness. And what also happens is that the things that are happening, changes in your physical body, the changes in your business, in your relationships with others, they do not impact you in a pushing you down way they normally would. Normally, whenever we're in a state of being unconscious, meaning that we're walking around on the planet, believing that we're only human, believing that, if I lose my car, it's the end of the world. If I lose my business, it's the end of the world. Or if a loved one transitions, then everything is gone to for a while at least. I'm down in the dumps. So whenever we're walking in that way, what happens is that we are unconscious. Now, when we become aware, that these areas are areas that go through changes and they are content within our consciousness, we've started to wake up. An awakened individual is someone who is conscious that they are consciousness itself. And we're conscious that we're consciousness. We're not just aware of what's going on in our lives, because that's just being asleep and being physically awake. I'm talking about being awake at a higher level, wherein you realize that these things that are happening in your life experience are a part of our life experience, but they're not us. Those of us who are tied into those experiences as if that's us, and whenever something, you get a cut on your hand, for example, you say, oh man, I'm gonna, I'm in so much pain and everything which is happening, but that's not us. That's in that. That's just the body that's going through a challenge, going through an experience, having something to deal with that we have to move on from. So the question is, are you unconscious? And this is degrees. It's not okay. Once you become aware that, yes, this is so, I'm consciousness and I'm not the content of my consciousness, it doesn't end there, because there are degrees to that. There are degrees to where you're aware of deeper and deeper levels of joy, deeper and deeper levels of peace, deeper and deeper levels of love, wherein somebody can do something outrageous and you can still respond with love and kindness and gentleness, even though they did something outrageous to you. When other people see how loving and kind you are in the face of what was done to you, they were like, how could you respond that way? If that was me, I would have blah, 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 blah. So what happens is that those who are unconscious, when something happens to them, there is going to be a reaction. There's going to be an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. There's going to be, I'm going to give you as good as you gave me, or as bad as you gave me, I'm going to give it back to you. And those are individuals who are unconscious. They're not aware of a higher level of being. And as a result, they react whenever something happens to them. So with that as a context, right? What would you say, about where individual you are as an individual in reference to that? Are you clear that your body is a body and you are not your body? Are you clear that, you have a mind, but you're not your mind? Or the concept of hearing that sounds somewhat relatively, new to you? Or, do you? Yes, I agree. I totally know that I have a body, I'm not a body. This is just something that I'm using here as a temporary aspect of living, and I'm going to make my way through it. Right? So here we are. So with that as a context, let me hear from you, Mark, in reference to, is there anything there that appeal to what, in terms of adding to what you were sharing, any additional perspectives or insights that you garnered during my ranting off and going on there that you'd like to contribute? You could go ahead and unmute if you can. And then I'll ask Wale and I'll ask Replan as well.
Oh, yes. Well, what I would want to add to that is that we have the ability to control our minds. And this is something that we need to develop personally, rather than having the mind control the body. And in being able to have that control over your own mind, well, then you would be in a state of full consciousness. And hence, you would be able to go through the roughest challenges, the roughest waters, and success is surely to come to your doorstep.
All right, thank you for that, man. Yeah, so having control over your mind, so that your body is not being controlled by your mind. That's a very powerful statement. So having control over your mind so that your body is not being controlled by your mind, because the body really follows our mind. So if we're not paying attention to what we're putting into our mind, our body is being controlled by a set of programs that may have come from our past, based on our culture, our parents, based on the school system we came up in, based on what's going on in the common human experience that goes into the mind. And then our body is being controlled by that, which ultimately means we have a life experience that's based on what others are thinking rather than what we would want to have happen. So you're absolutely on point with that, Mark. I'm in complete agreement with that. Wale, you want to jump in?
Yes, sir. I would like to cite an example of something that happened in Nigeria recently, to buttress the point that going by the explanation you've made, that we can actually control our reaction to things. based on the maturity of our mind. There is a presidential candidate. I mean, we all know we're in an electioneering period in Nigeria. And there's a candidate by the name Peter Obi. He was a former governor of a state in Nigeria. Now, an incumbent governor of the same state accused him that the investment he made while in office are worthless today. Are you there, Doctor?
Yeah, I'm listening.
So the incumbent accused this presidential candidate that all the investment he made while in office about 8 to 12 years ago are today worthless and they're worth nothing. So when the guy was asked at a public sitting to respond to that, he responded by saying the following: I want to thank the gentleman who is also my elder brother for making the observation about the worthlessness of the investment today. He is a professor and I'm just a trader. So he has more experience to handle things than me, and he can correct all those things I didn't do right. So he has a chance to do things better than me. And we hope to see the state come out better from where it was to what it should be in the nearest future through him. And believe me, that response was a first-class response that everybody applauded him, gave him respect more. He had more respect. And there was a huge backlash to the governor that told the man the investment is worthless today because they were not in the same political party anyway. Now, if we can develop the strength to control what we do, we stand to gain a lot more. And how can we do that? By being very conscious of every single thing we do, things we say, how we react, how we look at people, even to the minutest gesture we make. I think it's something that we can actually achieve as people. You know, that's my comment about the point.
All right, thank you very much, Wole. Appreciate that. Jump over to your replang. Do you, based on that conversation so far, any additional comments, insights added to your perspective that you had at the beginning?
Yeah, okay. So from this explanations that have been given, so what I can say is that you must be in control of your emotions, your feelings, to be a better person. You don't get carried away. Don't get carried away by, you know, it's like you having values, having principles. And so whatever anybody does, I mean, if your principle is not to join issues with people, then whatever the person does will not change your values. You stick to your values. So it even makes you a better person. That's what I can add to.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So, you know, very, very good. So we're all in agreement that being conscious has value. Becoming aware of a higher state of being carries more value because it allows for you to respond rather than react. Because when somebody says something derogatory, as Wole just gave that example, the power to be able to respond in a kind, gentle, respectful way, you know, comes from a higher order of being. Now, the question then is, how do we become conscious, right? You know, how do we move from, you know, someone who is unconscious to the thoughts running through our mind, someone who's not conscious about their physical body being their identity or being a major part of their identity? You know, how do you go to the place where you could say something kind when somebody says something really harsh to you? So let's start with you, Wole. What are things that we could do to raise our consciousness, right? So that we could become conscious rather than living in lower levels of consciousness or living in an unconscious state?
Okay, I think one of the things we can do is to meditate from time to time on those things that could help us to develop that habit or that attitude. You need to move from being an attitude to a habit. You know, for some people, it's habitual to be kind. You know, they don't get angry, they don't respond angrily to things. You know, but for someone who is coming from 0 to get to 10, for example, it needs constant study, constant meditation, mentorship, and being detailed about everyday activities. If, for example, I have told myself I'm going to respond to every insult in a kind way. So any day that I do not respond that way, I should note it down or do a daily recount of my activities. Was I angry with some people today? What led to the anger? How can I correct them? And I also believe in the power of prayer. I believe in the power of prayer, but we have to practice, and then do daily revision of our activities. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Wale. So you spoke about reflective thinking, contemplation, going back over the things that we did during the course of a day, writing down, so it's self-evaluation, evaluating ourselves and not just running through life and not taking stock of what are the things that I'm saying, what am I doing, why am I possibly doing them, so that we can start to make adjustments in our behavior, which will bring us to a higher level. So thank you for that. All right, let's go to you, Replong, and then Mark. What could we do to raise what could we do to raise our level to become conscious?
To raise that level, we must be intentional and consistent with whatever it is we're doing. Like what Wale just said, if you meditate, if you reflect, then you intentionally walk towards, creating that awareness and being that awareness in life. And you must be intentional about your values. You must be consistent. So wherever you are, whatever, if anybody hears about Replong, they should be able to say yes. If they hear she's done this, they should be able to say yes, that is her. Thank you.
I got you. Thank you for that. So Mark, what do you say we could do to raise our, move from being unconscious to being conscious, and then continue to increase our level of consciousness, or really, expand our awareness? That's another way to define it. Are you there? I know sometimes Mark's connection can be. Go ahead.
One of the things that I would recommend, or I could suggest, that could help you to get to that level of starting to get that consciousness going, is to have personal goals. It would set you up in the right frame of mind and set you on the right course to equalize, if I could use that word, equalize you getting to that conscious level. Because with setting goals, you have to be able to focus, which would means that you need to do some meditation, you need to plan, you need to be positive. So I think goal setting some goals and actually going at them is a vehicle to take you there.
All right, thank you for that, Mark. Thank you for that. All right, so in trying to bring this together, right? Here's what I would add to what you have all said. And first, I want to just thank each and every one of you for contributing and being willing to open and share your perspective. And you've added great value to this content. And those who are going to be able to watch the recording are going to greatly benefit, because a lot of people watch the recording, and some people do not come up to share, because individuals realize it's interactive. Some people kind of shy away because they don't want to speak for the fear of being wrong, or which is fine. Nothing is wrong. Nothing is necessarily wrong with that. But I really want to commend you guys for stepping up and being willing to share and have conversation and dialogue and not just watch the recording. So really thank you for showing up. All right, so in bringing it together about the idea of what can allow us to move from being unconscious to being conscious, right? And then also once you start to become a conscious being, to now start to elevate your level of consciousness even higher. Now, there's several practices that I've learned over the time that I've been in the space of trying to develop myself to become a better individual. And those 7 practices are something that I've embraced, and now I'm able to teach them because I practice them. So there are 7 of them that I'm going to outline, and I'd encourage you to write them down and just check off where are you on these 7, right? So I'm going to count 7 to 1, and number 1 is really the most important one, and I'm going to keep that for last. Now, number 7 is what we call fellowship. You know, where do we fellowship? Maybe once a week, maybe twice a week for some people. But who do you go in an environment where the individuals are positive, they're uplifting, they're goal seekers, like what Mark spoke about. They're individuals who have aspirations for better quality life. They have a sense of ambition. You know, individuals that are not talking about the negative things in our society and all the challenges that are taking place, but are speaking about the solutions and how they can help to make life better. So we have to fellowship around people like that. We can't be speaking about people who are talking about the lower levels of life and the lower energies of life only. You know, we don't ignore those levels, but we have to be mindful that we don't not hang around with people who are predominantly at those levels. All right. Number 6 is selfless service. In what way are you giving back to mankind? Are you personally going out and sharing and giving and gifting to individuals who are not as fortunate as we are in terms of where their level of consciousness is and what they're able to provide for themselves and their families? So what type of selfless service are you doing? Well, how are you giving into the society without any expectation of anything in return? You're simply giving from yourself purely for the purpose of giving and the joy of giving. Number 6. Number 5 is life visioning. This is a level of practice wherein you start to ask your creator, what is your creator's idea of your creator as you? So our creator at the deepest level is seeking by means of us to express the gifts and the talents and the capacities that the creator gave to us, and is seeking to use us as channels and avenues to deliver these gifts and these talents into the world. So how is it that you're going to know what your creator is seeking to do by means of you and I if you're not taking time out to evaluate that and ask that question, so that your creator can start to have a play and a place in using us to express our higher natures, right? That's number 5. Number 4 is the conversation that we're having. This conversation is designed to have what's called a high-minded conversation. It is designed so that you and I can actually rub up on each other, iron sharpened iron, and we can have a higher-minded conversation. We're having a conversation about being conscious, you know, moving from just simply accepting what people tell us to having a conversation, which means that this is a dialogue, not me dumping information to a group of people who just listen and write down stuff and do not have a chance to participate in it. So we're having a high-minded conversation. And I encourage you to participate in those because it helps to bring out the deeper aspects of our consciousness. It helps to tease things out that you may not have been aware of before. You have to start to reflect on other areas that you may not have considered up to this point. Number 3 is spiritual study. What type of books are you reading? You have to be studying books that other people have been able to discern things that allow for you to shortcut your pathway to spiritual awareness by spiritual study. Number 2 is affirmatively speaking or affirmative prayer. You know, Wallace spoke about prayer being powerful. Well, now, our prayers, every word that falls from our tongue is really a prayer because we're always praying without ceasing. The only thing is, what are you praying? What are the words that are coming out of our mouth? Because the words that come from our mouth all have a return to sender or address on them. So as we're speaking, everything that we're speaking is in the process of becoming a life experience. So if we do not become conscious of what it is that we're saying stuff that's ultimately coming back as our life experience. And a lot of that is coming from our subconscious, which is coming from what? Previous programming that we inherited when we just came onto the planet. So we have to take the responsibility to start to speak the words that are aligned with our higher nature. You know, to speak in a kind ways, gentle ways, powerful ways. Speak of affirmations. We have to have a set of written affirmations. If I were you, have had written affirmations that are literally going to define the way in which you're going to walk around the world. What are the goals? What are the dreams? What are the aspirations you have? And you're programming those into your subconscious mind because, as Mark said, the body follows the mind. So if you and I are not taking time to have these written affirmations, documenting and speaking what is going to go into our mind is being programmed anyway by our environment. So therefore, if you're not programming your mind, what's happening is that your body is automatically following a set of programs that you didn't even put there, just based on what's happening around us. So affirmatively speaking and praying and really doing the work necessary to condition our mind the way we want it to be is super, super important. Now, Wally, you mentioned about meditation. Now, I want to add one word to that. Not meditation as in reflection only, because reflection, which you spoke about, is important. To reflect on the content of what you're saying, to reflect on your day, because your actions are just simply the subconscious patterns which we have in us. And when we reflect on what we did during our day, it gives you a chance to see what you're doing subconsciously. Because when you're doing it, you're not even aware that you're doing it. It's just like driving home. You're on the way home, you want to stop at the supermarket, you end up at home not going to the supermarket because your subconscious mind is what drove you to home. So the number one thing that we need to do is called silent meditation. Silent. If you reshuffle the word silent, it means listen. So we have to have a period of time, whether it's a minute in the beginning, 2 minutes in the beginning, 5 minutes in the beginning. I do it in the morning and I do it in the nights. In the morning, I usually invest about 30 minutes to 40 minutes to just be silent, to not run around and do anything before I get up and do anything for myself or get anything ready for the day. I'm in silence. Before I do anything for our children, from a spouse standpoint, I'm in silence. So it's really important to really do silent meditation, because during that period, that's when the joy births itself, the peace births itself, love, the higher aspects of our being become active in our awareness if you continuously do that. It's like yeast inside bread. The yeast that goes into the bread, once you put the yeast in the bread and you put it in the oven, then the bread just enlarges. You put a small piece of flour with yeast in it, like this small. And once the heat hits it, you see the thing just expands and comes this big. So that's what happens with us. We are yeasty when we meditate. When we go into that space of silence, that yeastiness start to bubble itself up. And then you'll start to recognize that your joy becomes more active. Your peace becomes more active. You'll go through things in the world and, you're like, wow, I went through that and I wasn't pulled down the way something like that would normally pull us down or pull me down. So I want to encourage us to ensure that you are practicing silent meditation. And it takes us a level of discipline, because our ego, once we sit down to try to practice our figuring out mind, is trying to say, oh, you have this to do, you have that to do. Remember, you have this going on, you have to get to this, you have to get to that. We're rushing to go and do something in the world to make us better, which is important. But when we're not doing that silent meditation, doing those things in the world becomes a struggle. So that's the way I would seek to summarize the conversation. And I want us to all thank you again for showing up. And as we normally end, we end by saying, I bless you and your life is magnificent. We always find at least a number of individuals that are on here. Normally we seek to say at least 5 names of people that you want to bless. I encourage you to go out today and say to somebody, it could be a stranger, and say to them, I bless you and your life is magnificent. We do it all at once. All of us just unmute, and at the same time, just say to one another. And if you want to add another name in there, please feel free to go ahead and do so. So I bless you, Mark.
I bless you, Harry. Your life is magnificent. I bless you, Mark. Your life is magnificent. I bless you, Mark.
Marley.
I bless you, Makai, and your life is magnificent. I bless you, Harry. Your life is magnificent. And your life is magnificent.
I bless you, Ariana. I bless you, Abraham, and your lives are magnificent.
I bless you. Your life is magnificent.
I bless you all. Your lives are magnificent.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much for showing up. Love and appreciate you all. I enjoyed this discussion, and I absolutely hope that you did as well. All right. Blessings, everybody. All right. We'll see you guys soon. All right. Bye-bye.